Welcome everyone from Xtreme. We're excited to be on the line finally with several of you here. So what is today? Thursday, September 25th, and we're excited because we got two of our big rising stars that have graciously consented to share their information with us today. So I know we still have a few people that are joining us, but we have to get this show on the road. Since we have your attention, hopefully, what we're going to ask you to do is stay muted so we don't have any background noise. We do love seeing your faces. So if you could turn on the cameras, because some of you haven't seen in a while. While here, let's point out a couple of things that we have going on. See, September is almost over. As we go into the final quarter of the year, we want to share that we have a lunch and learn coming up. Is Lynette on the call, or am I seeing things? Is she on the call? Maybe. No. But we have a lunch and learn coming up in the studio, in the office. So you want to yonder. So we're going to debunk all of those mortgage myths and discover lending strategies that can help you close more deals and grow your business. So if your schedule allows, you definitely want to be there. So this is live and in person. It is not via Zoom, live and in person, 12:30 to 2 o'clock on Wednesday, October 1st. And we'll post the registration information in the chat area here. Not to mention, we're going to post it in the WhatsApp channel as well. And she'll be joined by Joey Rivero, who, my God, he's going to forget more about mortgages than most people will ever learn. Now, while we also have your attention, who would like to have a drink and somebody else is paying for it? Who would like to have some food and somebody else is paying for it? Erica is game, and it seems like maybe Erica is the only one, but there's got to be more than that. So how many of you maybe are not aware that our friends at Clear Choice Lending Group are also sponsoring a happy hour to celebrate the launch of our new relationship? It is going to be fun. If you've been with us for a while, you know that we've done a couple of these before. Hey, we have folks in the waiting room. Where are my folks? Where are my co-hosts letting people in? Okay.
They've been let in. They just don't hit the joining in with computer.
Yeah. Besides the punctuality Zoom, we're gonna have a how to use Zoom. Okay, so that will help out too. All right. So at TJ Black's, was it TJ? I'm thinking about my son. CJ Black's restaurant. So you know where that's at, right? It's right in the parking lot where our office is. On Tuesday, October 7th, from 5 to 7 p.m. It's a short window. We are going to have some drinks. We're going to have some food, some networking, some conversations, some camaraderie. You don't want to miss this, but we need you all to register. For some reason, people always seem to wait to the last minute, and we are sharing the link to register. We're chasing after you because we want to see you. Please keep in mind that we have limited capacity. And if a huge number of you want to attend, a lot of you are going to be left outside wondering what happened. So don't let that happen. Make sure that you register right away. So with that, I am going to stop the sharing on my end. And Ashley, while you're gearing up on your end there, once I know that you're good to go, then I will begin with the introductions.
I think I'm good over here, Tony.
All right, folks. Well, listen, this idea came to mind for me a few weeks ago. I said, man, it's been a while since we have a class on rentals. And before we get these two stars to start sharing their secrets, why is this so important? Well, it's no secret that the struggle is real, and a lot of agents they're hurting right now. It's a very difficult time in real estate. And one of the things that never ceases to surprise me is how many do not take advantage of the fact that in South Florida, we have a very lucrative compensation structure for rentals, which is something that doesn't exist in many areas of the state. Our own Highlands County, Lake Placid area, you go do a rental up there, you're lucky if you get $50, $75. Over here, it's considerably more than that. When I see so many of us that are licensed and the activity isn't there, and I see a lot of people working, How many of you would prefer, I mean, if you could do one rental a month, just one rental per month, and given rental prices nowadays, you're probably looking at $1,000, $1,200. How many hours would you have to put in at some retail store or driving a rideshare vehicle or something like that to make that kind of money? I think this is a golden opportunity for those that have maybe been disconnected for a while, those that haven't engaged. Maybe you're stuck where you're at right now. What can you do to revitalize your business? Whatever you do in this fourth quarter will determine how your year starts. The beautiful part about rentals is you get paid so quickly. I mean, sales, the money's a lot higher, lot more, but you wait longer. But the rentals, it could be a week or 2 or 3, and the money's in your pocket. So I said, who do we know that can get a lot of this stuff done? And I says, well, I already know 2 people. And we approached them and said, Ashley, Daniel, would you do this? And being extreme folks that they are, they didn't hesitate at all. So I'm so excited to see them branching out this way. I've been watching how they've grown as professionals and how they're serious about the business. So today you're in for a treat, folks. I hope we have something to write with and all that kind of stuff, because we are going to dazzle you. So we have the one and only Ashley Frederick here, also known as the social media queen. Because if you follow her on social media, you know she does some amazing things. And then you got Daniel Poux, which doesn't say a lot. He doesn't say a lot, man. He doesn't. He just walks in, sits down, makes money, and gets up and he leaves. It's just, I'm okay with that. I'm really, really okay with that. So can we give them a major league extreme welcome for their willingness to be sharing with us here today, right? All right, Ashley, you are up.
Awesome. Tony, thank you so much for that introduction. I truly appreciate it. And you guys, thank you all for attending tonight's class. I do appreciate you all as well for taking the time out to just give us a little bit of your time and show you guys what we came up with. Okay, let me see here. I'm trying to share my screen.
You see the green button at the bottom in the ribbon?
Yes.
And when you click
okay, I see.
You see it?
Desktop. Okay. Yes, got it. All right. Give me a moment here, y'all.
First time I did this, my hand was shaking so badly I couldn't click on anything. I was clicking on everything other than what I needed to click on.
Okay, I think I should be okay now. Let's do this again. Click here. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty. So today's class, working with rentals. So let's first go over the art of attraction and prospecting, because the goal is to build a strong rental business. And the one thing that I want you guys to remember is that renters turn into buyers, right? So as long as you are doing what you have to do and you're getting your book of business, you are getting rentals, if you communicate with them and nurture them, eventually they might turn into a buyer, and that's just going to be another client for you. Okay. So when you're attracting clients, you want to, attracting clients, you want to start with a strong pipeline of prospects, and you will nurture them until they become your clients. And when doing this, you want to actively attract prospects instead of waiting for them to come to you. So now we ask, how do we attract the clients? There's a few different ways to do so. The first thing you want to do is position yourself as trustworthy and an expert. You want to create high value social media posts. You want to stay on the top of their minds as far as past clients, prospects, and your personal sphere is concerned. And you want to put yourself out there. Think of it as like becoming a walking billboard. You're going to market yourself, your services, and you want to get comfortable with speaking to strangers. So positioning yourself as an expert. How do you go about this? Well, you want to stand out in the market. Within Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach counties, there are over 100,000 real estate agents. Like Tony always says, everyone knows a realtor. So you want to differentiate yourself and you want to position yourself to be viewed as the best agent for the job. And we can do that by building credibility. A few different ways to do that. You can get a professional headshot. And I don't want you guys to overthink this because a professional headshot can be something as simple as using your phone. You know, these iPhones and Androids, they take awesome quality pictures these days. You know, get behind a nice background, take the picture, and you'll be okay. You can hire a photographer, or you could even go to JCPenney. I saw a Groupon the other day for $30. They do portraits, but you just want to get you a nice professional headshot so that when you do your marketing or your social media post or anything like that, you know, it's just a nice cohesive representation. You want to create a Google business page and collect reviews. This was a game changer for me personally. Just having something, even as a rental agent, which I do so many of those, um, people being able to Google your name, or if you send them your Google link, you can show them like, hey, I am legit. I'm on Google. I have reviews. I started my Google page, I would say maybe a year and a half ago. And what I did was I went back into my past clients and I asked them if they would be willing to leave me a review based on the experience that they had with me. And then everybody that I have moving forward, if it's a good transaction, you know, sometimes you'll know if a transaction is, if you want them to possibly leave a review, sometimes you may not want them to leave a review. But if everything was smooth, you know, you send them your link to the review and say, hey, you know, again, when you have a moment, can you please leave me a Google review just talking about the experience that you had with me? And that would be a very great help. And most people don't have any problem doing that. And you want to keep in touch with your network and again, stay at their top of mind. When I say your network, again, that is your personal sphere, the people that are in your phone, that is your family, that is your friends, that is your past clients. Those are people in your CRM. You want to communicate with them. You don't have to text them every day or every week or even every month, but you do want to create a system to where you are sending them little emails or little text messages or just anything again. So it gets to a point to where someone mentions a realtor or a real estate agent, you're the one that they think of, not anybody else. And I have a little image here, a National Donut Day or any little quirky little holiday like that. You know, you can Google holidays in the United States. It'll give you an entire list. And then just Google some memes or some little images that you can use, copy and paste it in an email, and boom, there you go. That's all it takes. Or, you know, if they're already your client, you should have their birthday in your CRM. You know, you can make a note that every day you go through your CRM, look up anniversaries, birthdays, anything significant, reach out to them, say hey. Okay. Becoming a walking billboard. With this is actually quite easy. You can wear branded apparel like I have. You know, I have an Xtreme by Lpt polo. I have an Xtreme by Lpt visor that I wear. And I wear it everywhere. You can wear your name tag, and you want to do this even when you aren't working in real estate. There's been times when I had my visor on at the park, and people will stop me and ask me different questions about real estate, and it would end with us exchanging information. They would have my business card. I've been stopped in Sam's Club, Walmart, anything at all. And I wanted to show you the real estate merch that I'm talking about. You can go on Amazon and just type in real estate agent clothes. Right, and all of this will come up here. I sell houses fast. Ask me how. I need your listing. I need your listing. I sold all of mine. I have this shirt right here. Realtor. There's so many different things. And what it is we don't think of little things like that, but it ends up being a conversation starter, right? And you don't even have to do any work for that. You're just minding your business, doing you, and you are attracting people to you with this. And getting comfortable starting conversations about real estate and educating yourself in real estate news, even with rentals. You want to become a person that if someone asks you, hi, Erica, what's going on in the market? What's the current state of Broward County or Palm Beach, Miami, wherever you are? You want to be able to say, if we're talking about rentals, well, the average price for a 3-bedroom, a 3-2 condo in Coral Springs can range you anywhere from, say, $2,300 to $2,700, depending on what side of Coral Springs that you're in, depending on if you want a washer or a dryer, depending on this, depending on that. You want to become the point of contact. And in order to do that, you have to study. You have to study the market and the MLS. Creating flyers with your contact information and leaving them in high traffic areas. This is something that I really like to do. Once you have your headshot and if you have a logo, you should have a personal logo, but if you don't, that's fine. I would work on that. You can use the Xtreme by Lpt in the meantime. Go on Canva and create some flyers that have your name, your phone number, your email address, a QR code to your Google page, whatever it is that you want to have on there. And when you get those flyers, then you want to start handing them out. You want to be targeted with it though. So I have here going to restaurants and introducing yourself to the manager or owner, which I have gotten clients like that. Leaving business cards with restaurant staff or other service providers, the doctor that you go to, your children's school, or anything. Something else that I really like to do is I think about, where can I find renters? At rental communities, right? So something that I like to do is if I'm on my way home from a showing or, just if I dedicate a day to marketing, I will make a list of rental communities that I want to market myself in. And once you're there, you want to find common areas. So that would be a mail room or the laundry room or the office. You can go in there and ask them if you can leave cards there, if you can pin them. I've gotten clients that way. I've left cards in showings. What else have I done? Just anything like that. And say if the community is not a community where you can just drive in and be able to go in that way, you can schedule a showing, right? Just schedule a showing and that will be your access into the community. And once you're in the community, you can, there's so many things you can do. You can make a video of the community, of the listing that you're there for. You'll be able to record the community as a whole, the pool area, if they have any basketball courts, tennis courts, whatever it is that you want. And again, you're going to find common areas and you're going to leave your card or your flyer there so that, again, people that are renting can find you. Screening clients. This is a very important part because, as it says in the presentation, rentals can and they will burn you out. So this is why having a screening process is crucial. You need to have a system, and we'll go over that now. You want to have a system because you want to understand where your prospect stands. You want to uncover any particular preferences or issues they may have, and you want to save time for you and your client. So the first thing that I would do is a client consultation. And you guys know I am good for a consultation. I love to do a presentation in the office, but it can also be done over the phone or through Zoom. And some of the questions that you want to ask during this consultation is, when do you need to move? What are your preferences? How many bedrooms, bathrooms do they need? What cities are they interested in? What home type are they looking for? Some people are very particular. You know, they don't want a townhouse because they don't want stairs. They don't want to live in a multifamily because they don't want any neighbors. Uh, you know, some people don't want to live on the top floor. So these are things that you would need to ask beforehand. You want to know what their budget is. You need to know their credit score, and you need to know their monthly household income. You need to know if they have any pets. If so, how many, what breed, and weight. And this is a question that people may think is a little bit sensitive. However, it is important to ask, and I will explain why later. You need to know if they've ever been evicted. Have they ever been sued by their landlord? Even if they were not evicted, have they ever been sued by the landlord? Or have they ever had ever expunged an eviction? The reason why you need to know this is one, you know, for reasons that we all can understand. Some people may not be so forthcoming with this information. And also, as it says here, a rental can be expunged to where even if you do a credit report, it won't come up. And you need to know this because it doesn't have to be a deal breaker, but you need to know so that you can direct your client in the right way. And also so that when you submit your offers, you make sure that that is mentioned. Um, as we know, a lot of landlords will not accept someone that has an eviction, but I have successfully moved people with an eviction. I moved someone that was in the process of being evicted from her current home, and I found her the home she went to afterward. And it's really just all about knowing the situation and being forthcoming with it and putting your client in front of the right people for that. You don't want to waste time showing them places that clearly state that an eviction will not be accepted. And going back to the earlier questions that I said to ask, you want to know when they need to move, because let's say that someone needs to get to their new place in 2 weeks. So if they need to move in 2 weeks, then you don't want to show them a community and an HOA that takes 30 days to be approved, right? You want to make sure that you're showing them things that they can actually get into right now. Okay. And of course, with the budget, credit score, and monthly household income, those are things that you need to know because you need to know their budget just so you can know what to look for. And the credit score and monthly household income will determine what they qualify for. When you're reviewing the financial documents, and when I say financial documents, I'm referring to a credit report, a background check, copy of their ID, and last 2 months of pay stubs. You want to request these documents before you show them any showings, before you send any listings. Do not send anybody any listings before you get the credit report, background check, ID, and last 2 months of pay stubs. Why, do you ask? For efficiency and promptness. You want to focus on properties that the client can actually qualify for, and you want to have the documents ready to submit promptly. So a real life example of that would be, let's say your client says their credit is 700, but you did not get your credit report before sending them any listings. Say you send them a listing, you show the property, they love it, you submit an offer, and you find out that the community has a 700 score requirement, but your client actually has a 675. So now you've wasted time showing them this property. The client has wasted time and money paying this application fee when you could have been focused on places that they actually qualify for. And another example of why I like to get this beforehand is so that when you do find the property that the client wants, you're able to submit a listing within the hour, right? Because if you already have the financial documents, all you have to do now is draft the contract to lease, have the client sign, and you already have everything else. In my early days, before I figured out the system, I used to show the property, the client said they want to submit an offer, and then I would ask for these documents. And it took me one time to learn this lesson. When I got all the documents, and then I went back to now send everything to the agent, and the property was under contract. Someone else was faster. So one thing I want you guys to remember with rentals is that this is very fast paced. And again, you need to have a system. And you can handle this however you would like. However, I find that requesting these documents beforehand, it yields the best results. Sometimes a client might be a little hesitant to send you these things prior to you showing them any homes. But if I find that if you just explain everything, then they have no issue. If you say, hey, well, I want to make sure you get the place before anybody else does. So that's the reason why I want to make sure that I have these documents before I show you this property, so that if you like it, I can get that offer out in no time, and no one else will have the opportunity to come in before you and send this offer in. Now with fees, sorry, you guys. With the fees, you want to make sure that everything is clearly stated to the clients, just so that everything is transparent. So you want to tell the client that there's going to be first, last, and security, plus any pet fees or HOA if applicable. And with the move-in fees, you want to make sure that the client has this before you show them any properties. Again, the reason is just so that when they want to move forward with the place, they're ready. As you guys know, when you submit a contract to lease, typically the first month is due within 3 days of um, submitting the offer, and then you give the last and security on move-in day. You just want to make sure that the client has the money before you go ahead and do anything. I always disclose a credit check fee. Personally, I use Premium Credit Bureau, and the fee is typically $47. And there are a few different credit companies that you can go through. I like Premium Credit Bureau, and I'll explain why in a little bit. And if you're with Xtreme by LPT, there is a $150 admin fee that applies to clients. I have never had an issue with anybody paying this. I just tell them it's attached to the first month, and I leave it at that, and I don't have any issues. Well, actually, I didn't realize it were this fast. So going back to the credit check fee, I mentioned that I like to use Premium Credit Bureau. I'll just get into that really quick and explain why. They pull all three credit reports. They pull Experian, they pull Equifax, and they pull TransUnion. I prefer that because, there are other rental companies, credit reporting companies, and you can choose them if you like. Some are more user-friendly, but I like Premium Credit Bureau for that reason. They pull all three. You might find that an HOA might use TransUnion, and your client, their Equifax score might be a little bit lower, but they might meet the TransUnion score, which is the requirement for the HOA. So I just like to have all three scores, and that's why I prefer Premium Credit Bureau. But again, you can go with whatever you would like. So now we're going to go into Facebook marketing, what I like to call the lead machine. One of the lead machines. I'm going to go over Facebook, and then Daniel will go over his. So with Facebook, you want to create content that provides value to your followers. You want to share tips for first-time renters and explain the application process. You can keep your followers updated on home buyer programs and new rental communities, because like we mentioned, renters turn into buyers. And a way to attract current rental clients is to promote rentals. Okay. And you can also use Facebook groups to your advantage. I have had great success with Facebook groups because it's an opportunity to reach people in the area that are specifically seeking information related to real estate. And as you guys know, Facebook groups can get extremely niche, which is very good for you. There are groups that are specifically for Broward County, specifically for the city of Tamarack, all kinds of things. And if you want to reach out to people in a particular area, that's a really good way to do it. Okay. So now with Facebook Marketplace, this is something else that I use a lot. You can use both photos and videos of listings on Facebook Marketplace. You might find it easier to use photos in the beginning because you can just go on the listing on the MLS and just pull the photos from there and post it. You don't have to go to a listing and get a video. You can do all of this from home. You want to use listings that are vacant and okay to advertise with or without attribution. With attribution, that means that you have to disclose the listing agent and broker. Without attribution means that you don't have to mention the listing agent or the broker. You want to use it as an opportunity to connect and nurture leads who may not qualify for a specific listing. Sometimes when you put something on a property on Facebook Marketplace, you will get hundreds of interested clients, and not all of them will qualify, right? But something that I like to do is just to ask little questions, pre-qualify them, ask them when they want to move, what their credit score is, so forth. Because what you can do is they might not work for that particular listing that you have, but you can say, hey, this property, I don't think it would work out. However, I can assist you with another property. Anyone that comes in, you can ask them for their phone number or email address so that you can add them to your CRM in your pipeline. And again, you start nurturing them. So even if they are not your client right now, they can become your client later. And I have had success with that. I remember one of my clients that I closed this year, a renter, I actually met her last year through Facebook Marketplace. And she wasn't ready then, but she was ready in, I believe it was March is when I moved her. So it can work for you if you just put in the work. And remember, to do all this, you do not need rental clients. You can use photos from the MLS, like I mentioned, or schedule a showing and show up just to record a video. So now from here, I'm going to go to the MLS, and I want to show you guys the filters that I put in order to find the listings that I then put on Facebook. So I'm here in the MLS in the rental search area. And, you can put whatever price point, is something that you work with or something that you think would get a lot of hits. Let's say 2,700 or under, just for demonstration purposes. I always look in Broward County because I'm in Broward. And if you want to know any of my additional fields, please let me know, and I would be happy to send you a list of the filters that I use here. So HOPA, I always put no HOPA. What that is 55 and plus communities. It's nothing against them. I just find that, I don't want to put a niche, because I want to reach out to as many people as possible to add them to my pipeline. So, if you want to include HOPA, by all means, you can choose verified or unverified, but I'm going to say no HOPA for today. And occupancy information, I prefer vacant properties, because if you do go and take a video, you don't want to be taking a video of people and they have their personal belongings around, they have pictures of their family in the background. So a vacant property is best. Personally, I don't like showing properties that do not have a washer or a dryer. So I'm going to select those two here. And okay to advertise. Again, you want to select yes, attribution not required, or yes, attribution required, because these are the listings where the listing agent is allowing us to post them on social media. And look, we have 133 matches. So let's just go ahead and choose one here. Let's do a townhouse. Okay, so this looks nice on the outside. Has nice photos. This one would do good on Facebook. So what you would do, just keep this up right here. Now this is my Facebook Marketplace desktop here. So you're going to select create a new listing, home for sale or rent. And it's literally as easy as this. You're going to add the photos. You're just going to come to the MLS and save the image, all the ones that you want to select. You're just going to save all of them. You're going to upload all of them here. You're going to put that it's for rent. You're going to put it's a townhouse or whatever it is, the bedrooms and the bathrooms. For the rental description, you don't want to make up your own description. You want to just copy and paste what they have here. This one is a little bit short, but again, this is demonstration purposes. So you're just going to copy and paste the description in there. and fill out any additional information that's available. And then you are going to go ahead and post it. And then when you do that, this is what you're going to get. This is my listing here. This is a sales listing, but this is how it's going to come up. The photos, you're going to be able to scroll through them. The address is clearly stated, square feet, townhouse, and that's that. And then you just wait for the messages to roll in from there. And you can do multiple of these at one time. You don't have to have just one, but that's how you would go ahead and do that. Okay. Okay. So now I want to discuss some tips. Tips for success. Some of this has to do with submitting offers, and some of it is just general information. Again, just tips that help me on my way with rentals. Sometimes it might be good to offer more to mitigate risk. So what that means is if you have any clients that are have any challenging applications, like if they have low credit or an eviction, you can offer them extra money. You can offer, well, with the tenant, ask the tenant if this is okay. Say if the listing is for $2,000 a month, you can ask, hey, are you okay with doing $2,050? Or are you okay with adding renter's insurance to the deal? Or are you okay with offering a larger security deposit to strengthen the offer? Something else you can do, if they happen to have a lot of money saved, you can include a bank statement to prove funds or a cosigner. When I say include a bank statement, I mean send that with the offer. You can offer less on old listings. I just did that last month. There was a listing that was on the market for 30 days, listed for $2,100, and I submitted an offer for $2,050, and it was accepted. You want to use the long days on market as a leverage for a price reduction. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But one thing I love to say is that the least someone can tell me is no. If they say yes, then we're good. You don't want to forget about canceled or expired listings to find off-market deals. I'll give you an example. I had a situation where my client had a very particular property that she was looking for, and I couldn't find one on the market, but I did find one that was recently canceled. And it happened to have the landlord's phone number in there. So I called them up and I asked them, I said, hey, I understand that this listing is canceled. May I ask why? Because I have a client that would be extremely interested in something like this. And he told me that that particular listing was no longer available, but he had something else available. And if I wanted to see it, that I could show my client. And it was a single family home. She loved it and we worked it out. And that was an off market deal. So sometimes it might be something that's canceled or expired. And if you reach out to the owner, you may be able to work something out that way as well. And this is all for rentals too. Okay. You don't want to ignore properties with few or no photos because they can be hidden gems. I once had a situation where the listing only had a photo of the front door, but I said, you know what? It checks all the boxes. I'm curious. Let me just go see. And the house was fully renovated. Fully renovated. I was thinking, why would you not want to show off this beautiful property? It only had a picture of the front door, but I ended up closing on that one too. So don't ignore properties with few or no photos. Ask questions. If you want to go ahead and take a look at the listing first before bringing your client, go ahead because it might be what exactly they're looking for. You want to do thorough checks of the clients that you're working with, especially when you're doing rentals. If you're with the Miami board, which I believe we all are, you can use an app called Forewarn, which is included with our it's included with our membership to check for safety and multiple credit files, credit profiles. People are using things called a CPN now. And what that is basically is you can have different credit profiles, different socials, and they might give you a social that has a particular credit report, no evictions or nothing on it. And you want to know that's going on. And you can do that by going in Forewarn and typing in the person's name. Do not type in their phone number, type in their first and last name. And if you happen to see, say, if the person's name is Mary Jane and she lives in Weston, Florida, and is 40 years old, there should not be 6 different Mary Janes in Weston that are 40 years old. So you know something is wrong in a situation like that. And you also want to check county records for expunged evictions. Again, this is just all for you to know so that you can understand. In closing with an impact, with rentals, I do like to give a small closing gift. I know some people don't like to do it, but it is a very small gesture that can lead to repeat business and referrals. Some of the closing gifts that I give with rentals is cleaning supplies. You know, they're going to come in, they're going to clean. You can give them a big laundry basket, put some bleach, some soap, some paper towels, toilet paper, water. I've given antibacterial hand soap so that, you know, as they're moving things in and out the house, you know, they can at least like use the restroom and so forth. I've gotten a custom cutting board off of Etsy, only maybe $25, $30, not a lot of money at all. But again, a small gesture that will result in repeat business. And my portion is done.
Oh my God, that's outstanding. What do you think we should do? Wait until Daniel does this and then just open up the Q&A in all that way you guys can both answer the questions?
Yeah. I
Yes,
think Q&As, we'll
that's the
do
plan.
everything at the end. So make
Perfect.
sure everybody hold your questions. We'll get to it towards the end. So let me get started now. I'm going to share my screen. So Ashley got into a lot about Facebook and how to market on there. Obviously advertising listens and whatnot. That everything she does on there, I also do. There's a ton of success with it. Another place that I found success with was TikTok. So I'm going to show you guys a quick demonstration really of what I do on TikTok. So let me see if you guys can see my screen. Give me a second. Where is it? Can you guys see my
Yeah,
screen?
there it is.
Great. Okay. So this is what I do on TikTok. I started getting into this year. The whole reasoning for it for me was just to try different things. I think that's a big thing in real estate is to think outside the box and just try things. You never know what's going to work until you try it. So what I do on TikTok here is mostly I like to give people virtual tours of homes. People love to be able to, everybody's always online all the time. So if you can give people a tour of a home before they actually get to step out and see it in person, you're going to catch people's attention and you're going to get a lot of messages. You're going to have, it's just going to draw a lot of attention your way. So these are the different type of listings that I have. As you can see, you gain a lot of traction. I've got some listings with 42,000 views. I've got some with 76,000 views, things like that. Um, and from my experience, the houses gain more traction than condos. Now, condos do work, but you want to make sure you find the right one. What I like to find are ones that are more up to date and the price isn't too crazy. So I'm just going to show you guys a quick video of certain ones that I've done. So let me get to this one right here. So just a quick run through. You can play your own music, stuff like that. Um, that's gonna go back and go forward this way. And play the whole video. You want to play the whole thing. So we do a quick run through of videos. What I like to do, make sure you speed up the videos a little bit because you don't want people sitting there for a minute and a half, 2 hours watching a video. So speed it up, not too long. You know, obviously don't want it to be too fast. You want people to be able to see what they're doing. Um, And then from then on, you're able to upload. What I like to do is in the caption, you want to be able to put hashtags. So the hashtags that you put, you want to be very specific with them. You want to use hashtags that are very common. And when you upload, it's going to give you the opportunity for hashtags and it's going to show you how many people are using those hashtags. So the hashtags I like to use are ones that are very commonly used by other people. So it'll show on there, hey, this hashtag has been used by 2,000 users. This one's been used by 500,000 users. This one's been used by 1 million users. You want to be able to use the ones that are very common because those are the ones that are getting searched up most by the people that are on TikTok. So this is pretty much everything that I do on TikTok. You're gonna get a lot of messages, and the traction it gains very quickly. That's one thing I realized. It didn't really take much time for me to start building up, a database through TikTok. And when you get your messages, the whole point is to get them in your phone on a phone call, on a Zoom call, and eventually in person. And then we're gonna go through the whole process of the whole rental process as Ashley started talking about, which I'm gonna get into now as well. So let me get into that right now. If I can get on to, if I can get on to, let me see here. If Trying to pull up my PowerPoint if I can get it. See, is it pulling up? No. Here it is. Okay, so what I'm going to get into is meeting the rental requirements. So everything Ashley told you about is pretty much going to start from how you market yourself to when you're able to get your clients. You're going to do your consultation, everything like that. You're going to get an understanding of what they're looking for, what they want, and you're going to start screening them and getting the information that you need. The reason why you need to do this is because there are certain requirements that landlords are going to have and associations are going to have. Right now, we're going to focus on the basic requirements that every landlord is going to have. So the main three that you want to focus on is going to be proof of identification, proof of income, and a credit background and eviction screening. So those are three things that every landlord is going to ask for. So I'm going to start off with proof of identification. That is very simple, straightforward. There's different, every adult is going to be required to submit this. So whoever's living in the property, you're going to want a copy of either a driver's license, a passport, a social security card, a visa, something of that sort. And that is going to have to be submitted with every offer. So make sure you get that up front from your clients. The next document that you're going to need is proof of income. So there's two different sides to this. You've got people that are employed that work typical 9 to 5 that are going to get pay stubs. And the most common form of documentation that you can submit is pay stubs. Um, Regardless of which side you're on, you're going to need to submit at least 2 to 3 months of income. Client, tenant, landlords want to see stability when it comes to income from clients. So you're going to want to at least get 2 to 3 months worth. And so landlords can see that you have a tenant that they'll feel confident and will be able to pay rent every month. So like I said, the main documentation that they ask for is going to be pay stubs. Another one can be bank statements. Um, in your bank statements, you want to make sure that it shows direct deposits coming from their employer. That as well, you're going to want 2 or 3 months worth of that. What's not as common is tax returns. You can use that if you like. It's not as common, but it is an option as well. Now, if you're working with a client that is starting a new job or has recently started a new job, what you can submit is an employment verification letter. So what you want to make sure when you get that letter, you want to make sure that their name is on there, the company name is on there, and that they're able to confirm your tenant's role with the company, their salary, and their employment status when they started or when they will be starting. That can be used as income as well. That shouldn't be a problem with your landlords. Now, if you're self-employed, the best option for you to use is it's going to be bank statements. You want to use bank statements, again, last 2 to 3 months worth of it, and you want to see your income coming in from whatever business you have going on. Another one will work is tax returns as well. Tax returns is more common for self-employed people compared to just regularly employed people. And then you can also use invoices, contracts that you have with clients, and a letter from your accountant can work to verify your income as well. So next, we're going to get into the credit background and eviction screening. Ashley, she got into that quite a bit. We're going to go into it a little more in detail. Um, the main reason, the very first reason why you want to get a criminal background check is for your own safety risk. Um, Whoever we work with, we want to make sure that we're safe and we're not at risk. That's the main thing. Like Ashley said, Forewarn is a very good app to use to check people's background and stuff like that to make sure it's something that you're comfortable with. Um, and once you do that and you're comfortable with them, then you can move forward. Um, Another reason why you want to do this, you want to make sure that you show people that you're detail oriented, you're responsible, and specifically for landlords, showing that you're protecting their assets. This is something that if you have a listing for a landlord, you want to bring this up and let them know you will be running all of a full screening of everything so they feel comfortable and they see that you're serious. Lastly, it gives you just a clear understanding of your client and what they qualify for and what they won't qualify for. So this really applies to everything as far as the credit background, eviction, proof of income, and it gives you a clear understanding of what we know what they want, what their criteria is, what they're looking for, but that doesn't always match up with what their situation is. So you want to make sure you have a clear idea of that so you can steer them in the right direction. So I've got a few places to where you can screen your clients. I know Ashley mentioned Premium Credit Bureau. That is a very good one. Um, the reason why it's so good, in my opinion, is like she said, they run the credit report for the three main credit bureaus. So that's going to be very important, especially if you're dealing with an HOA that may potentially have a credit score requirement. You want to make sure that you get a concrete credit score from one of the three bureaus. Because you can use Rent Spree, which is a good one. But what I learned from Rent Spree, I learned the hard way, is that their credit score that they run is their own type of score. It's their own renter score that they came up with. So it's not an actual credit score from any of the three main bureaus. So I learned the hard way. I had a client that their score came up as in the 600s, which is what was required by the HOA, and then they ran their own credit check and it was in the 500s. So you want to avoid that type of situation. Rent Spree is a good one to use because they do rental applications, but if if you have a client that you know is looking for something with a HOA, you're gonna want to make sure I'd prefer to do the Premium Credit Bureau. And like I mentioned, obviously, Forewarn is very good for criminal background checks, and then the clerk of the county you can check for like expunge evictions, credit files, just like Ashley was talking about earlier. So I went over the basic requirements that are going to be just for every landlord, but each landlord is different. So some might be a little more strict, some might be a little more lenient, and they have their own restrictions that apply just to them and what they're looking for. Um, so here's going to be some of the main ones to ask. This is something that you want to make sure you ask the landlord if it's not in the broker's remark. So when you look at the listing on there, a lot of times this information will be in the broker's remarks. Sometimes all of it will, sometimes some of it will. Whatever's not in there, you want to be sure to ask them about their requirements. So the first one's going to be a minimum credit score requirement. Some landlords, like I said, are lenient, some are strict. Some might have a minimum credit score requirement of 650 or 700 or 680, whatever. You want to make sure that you ask and you have an idea of that before you show the property. You want to be able to know that. Another one would be your income requirement. As you know, nowadays we're starting to see a lot of landlords require three times the rent for the income. That's not all landlords. Some are cool with two times the rent. Sometimes they're cool with 2.5 times the rent. You want to ask them and verify that stuff to make sure it lines up with your client's income as well. Because you don't want, like Ashley was saying earlier, you don't want to sit here and go show a property and then go write up an offer and then they send you an email back saying, hey, your client doesn't meet the credit score requirement. Your client doesn't make enough. Stuff like that. You want to dot your I's and cross your T's before you start going out there and showing property, stuff like that. So another main one to ask again is moving costs. You want to make sure you have an understanding of whether they're asking for first last security, or maybe they're asking for first and security. Maybe they're asking for first and double security. So that's all stuff that you need to check to make sure and see if that's something that works with your client. It's also a possibility that there's flexibility with that type of stuff. You always want to ask because sometimes on the MLS it'll say they require first last security, but if your client's got 750 credit, you can always check and ask, hey, my client's got great credit. My client's got a clean background, great income. Can we just do first and security? I've been in those type of situations where that's happened because at the end of the day, you represent your client and you want to get them the best deal possible. So make sure to ask that as well. Pet restrictions are another one, like Ashley mentioned. Um, you want to know, is there a restriction on the amount of pets that can be had, the type of pets that you can have? So you want to just check and ask, and you also want to ask if there's going to be a pet fee or pet rent or anything like that. So you don't want any type of surprises. Um, so you want to ask that as well. Another one, max number of occupants allowed. This really applies, especially if we're talking about like one bedroom apartments or two bedroom apartments. So you want to make sure that if you're working with the client, let's say you have a client that's a single parent and they've got three kids, but they can only afford enough for a one bedroom. Some landlords might say, hey, I have a three or four person, right, restriction, and we won't allow anything more than that. You want to make sure that it's not going to be an issue to where your client's going to be able to have whoever occupies that property, it won't be an issue. The next step, you want to check for renters insurance as well. Some landlords require that. It's not really a big deal. Renters insurance usually can be 11, 12, 13 bucks. So it's something, but you just want to make sure that you ask so you can let your client know in case they're interested in a property that's already pushing their budget. Let them know that this will be another expense that's added on top to make sure that it's something that they're okay with or not. The next one would be independent screening. So I know we've talked about making sure you screen your client ahead of time so you're not wasting anybody's time. You're doing your due diligence prior to moving forward. Unfortunately, what happens sometimes is landlords or their property managers will run their own screening. So they'll tell you, hey, I don't really care what you ran. You ran your own premium credit bureau report. We run our own stuff. So your client's gonna have to pay their fee if they charge one to run their own screening, which goes in hand with the rental application as well. Sometimes they'll have their own applications that they'll send you a link for and tell you, hey, it's $75. Send it over to your client. They'll have to apply through here. So make sure you get that information ahead of time to let your client know, hey, this place charges an application fee. You got to run your own application through them as well. I know we already did it with us, but you're gonna have to do it with them. If you don't want to do that, let me know so we don't go take a look at that place or we don't try to submit an offer because you don't want to waste time. Because, like Ashley said, rentals go quick. It's a fast moving train and you don't want to get left behind. So, landlord requirements are not the only requirements you want to worry about if you're dealing with associations. I think associations have their own set of requirements. Sometimes they align with the landlord, sometimes they don't. But you want to make sure you find out what their requirements are. And I stress this a lot. When finding out the requirements, you can ask the listing agent, but please make sure you verify with the association. I can tell you from my experience a bunch of times, a lot of listing agents are not 100% sure of what the association requires and what they don't. So you want to be able to give the association a call or send them an email, and you want to be able to ask a lot of these questions. A lot of these questions are going to be very similar to the questions you're going to ask the listing agent about the landlord's requirements. Um, so with your minimum credit score requirement, you want to ask that. And a thing that you want to also ask when asking that is, does that apply to all adults? Some situations, associations will require a certain score from at least one adult that's going to be on the lease. That doesn't happen too often, but it happens sometimes, and sometimes that can actually save you to where, oops, sorry about that, to where you thought your tenants weren't going to be able to qualify for the place, but ends up they do. Um, so another one is going to be a minimum income requirement. This isn't as common with associations as much, um, but you do want to make sure if it's not on the application, just ask just to be sure. Because I know I recently just dealt with a place that had a minimum income requirement, and it wasn't on the application, and we had to find out because I had to call them. So you want to make sure that you check that just to make sure. Um, Another big thing you want to ask is how long does the approval take? So Ashley mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you're not looking at places that are going to take too long to approve when your client needs to move in a week or they need to move in 2 weeks. So make sure you give the association a call. You ask them, how long does this take? A lot of places take 30 days. Some places take 2 weeks. Some places take 10 days. And to be honest, I've spoken to some property managements and associations, and they've told me, hey, our application says 30 days, but I can really get this done in a week. So you can, it's always best to just ask them to get a realistic idea of how long it'll take. Car and parking restrictions. This is something that, especially if you're dealing with condos, you want to ask. Condos and townhouses, you want to ask how many cars are allowed. There will be some places that do have a maximum of 2 cars allowed, and your client has 3 cars. You want to make sure that there won't be an issue. Also, some places let's say you have a couple that is looking to move into a condo. Um, if they've got 2 cars, some associations will only give you a parking pass for 1 car, and the other person will have to park in guests or something like that. You want to make sure that that won't be an issue with your client. You want to make sure that they are allowed to park in guests and that their car won't get towed, things like that. Another thing will be pet restrictions, which is similar with the landlord. You want to check if the association has pet restrictions. Again, you want to check if there's certain type of pets that aren't allowed, if there's a weight limit, the amount of pets that are allowed. You want to check all of that as well. You also want to ask application fee. If there's an application, which most time there will be with the association, you want to ask how much that fee is, and you want to ask if that applies to all adults or if a married couple can just pay one fee, which happens a lot of time. If they're not married, they're typically going to have to pay separate fees for all adults. Another sneaky one that could end up being an issue if you don't ask, just ask them, is there a security deposit or common area deposit required to be paid to the association? Um, I've been in a couple situations to where that has been the case and it wasn't mentioned because the landlord didn't know, the listing agent didn't know. And then they send over the application and I'm looking at it and they're asking for, hey, we require $1,000 security deposit. And sometimes it'll state on there whether that deposit is supposed to be paid by the landlord or the tenant. So now you end up in a situation to where you're already paying first, last security, and now you're reading the application and they're asking for the association's asking for $1,000 security deposit. Now you're in a tricky situation. Now you need to speak to a listing agent. All right, what are we going to do here? How are we going to go about this? You avoid that by asking this up front. So you already know exactly what the situation is going to be. And that's something that you can speak with to the landlord and figure that out before even taking a look at a place or submitting an offer. The last one that I would ask is make sure you ask if any utilities are included in the monthly fees that the monthly HOA fees that the landlord pays. A lot of times you will see on listings or you'll ask the listing agent, hey, are any utilities included? And they'll tell you no. Technically, they're right because the landlord is not including any utilities, but sometimes the association is, and a lot of times it's water. So you ask the listing agent, they'll tell you, listen, no, we're not paying anything. Tenant has to pay water, electricity, all other utilities. A lot of people don't want to a lot of people want to at least have one of the big utilities, either water or electricity is most likely going to be water. They want that at least to be included in the rent. And a lot of associations, it's the water is already included in the HOA fee. The landlords just don't realize it. So you just want to double check with the association so you can let your client know that you won't have to worry about that. So there's things that you want to ask for as well. Just you want a copy of the rules and regulations. So you can have that for your client as well to make sure. A lot of the stuff as far as parking and whatnot can also be in the rules and regulations. You also want to get a copy of the association application from the association. What happens a lot of times, sometimes landlords might have an old, outdated copy of a previous application that doesn't have updated information, doesn't have updated requirements and stuff like that. So you want to make sure that you get the right one from the association because sometimes the association used to not have a credit score requirement, but now they do. And if you have their old application, there's going to be nothing about a credit score requirement on there. And then they send you over the new one, and now you see they require 700 credit or something like that. So you want to make sure you get that. Um, you also want to check to see how do they want the application submitted. Some places do it online to where they can send you a link that you would send to your client, and the application will be done all online, which is simple and easy. Sometimes they're still old school, and you have to drop everything off. You have to print out the application, fill it out, drop it off. If that's the case, you want to verify the association's location and office hours. Sometimes their locations change and it's not updated on the application. So you just want to verify to make sure that whatever address that they have on the application is correct and their office hours, because you want to make sure your client's able to make it there at a time that they're open and whatnot. So you don't have no issues. So they don't have to make a second trip or anything like that. Lastly, once you submit the application, it's just going to be a waiting process with the association. Once you get an answer, hopefully an approval, you want to make sure that you get an approval letter when approved by the association. Do not just go off for their word. If they call you, tell you you're approved, anything like that, make sure your client gets an approval letter. Make sure they send it to you, and you make sure you send it over to the landlord for confirmation, just to let them know we're good to go and we're ready to go. Because associations won't allow you to move in without the approval letter. So we want to make sure that's taken care of. So yeah, so I've got some final tips that I want to get into. Um, a main one that I like is if a tenant is not moving in on the first of the month, clarify with the landlord if the rent will be prorated or not. Um, because if the rent is prorated, a lot of times your client's gonna have to pay that proration on top of first last security or whatever the moving total is. You want to make sure that that's something that works with your tenant, because sometimes obviously first last security is a lot. Sometimes that's all they have and they can't afford to pay for another week and a half or something like that. And a lot of times if you don't check up front, you'll submit the offer, you'll get the contract to lease signed, um, you'll have escrows deposited, and then you get the lease and you're reading it and it's saying, hey, there's a proration due as well. And then now you're completely thrown off, your client can't afford it, and now you're in a sticky situation. So you just want to make sure you get that information up front. Another tip that I have is when you're working with the contract of lease and you're preparing an offer, what I like to do in the additional terms section of the contract to lease is make sure that you state in there that the unit will be delivered clean and all appliances will be functioning at move-in. That's very important because the truth is a lot of landlords will see what they can get away with, and they will push you as far as they can. Um, I'll, I've been in plenty of situations where I will have this written in there, and then you get to the unit and the unit's dirty and certain things aren't working and whatnot. So you want to make sure that you're protected and have this in there to make sure that it's taken care of if that situation were to happen. Because if you don't put this in there and you expect the place to be clean and everything to be working, if you get there and the place is dirty and there's dust everywhere and there's a couple bugs, guess what? If it's not in writing anywhere, they don't have to clean anything. They don't necessarily have to fix things. So you want to make sure that you're protected. And this is something that I copy and paste in every single contract lease I do. So this is something that you want to do, and just to make sure that your client is protected. Last tip is going to be, if you're going to be dealing with typically families and like couples, make sure that all adults are on the same page about what they want. Because a lot of times, from my experience, you can get every once in a while a situation where one partner wants one thing and another one wants another thing, and you're on the phone with one partner and they're going over their criteria and what they want, and then and eventually you get all of the documents and you start sending them listings, and you'll have the other partner call you up and say, hey, but no, I don't want this. I don't want this. Don't listen to her. Don't listen to her. You listen to me. This is what I want. Those type of situations, that's where it gets messy. It gets sticky for us as realtors, because that's where you want to let them know, listen, I can help you guys, but I need you guys to get on the same page and figure out exactly what you want because now I'm in a sticky situation and I can help, but I need to know exactly what you guys want. And I don't want to be a part of any drama related to you guys personally. I can help you on the real estate side, but you guys need to figure that out. And I think that's the important part of being a realtor. You got to make sure you take control. You have to take control. You are the professional, you are the expert. Make sure that you lead the way because if you let the clients lead, they don't know where they're going. So this can go really good or it can go really bad. If you lead the way and you know that you're confident in what you do, you know this is going to work out. So make sure you take control of everything and let your clients know that I'm here to help you, but you guys need to be willing to be helped. So I've got a couple things that us realtors, just when you get into the rentals, just make sure you focus on improving. Everything's not going to be perfect at the start. You're going to keep learning and learning and learning. It's not something that you just get right away. Most of what I know from rentals really just comes from experience. And you make your mistakes or you learn from other people's mistakes and you just apply that to your next transaction. So make sure you seek feedback. You want to reflect on your performance, see where you went wrong, see where you could have gone and done better. See how you could have handled the situation better. See how, hey, I didn't put this in the contract at least. Let me make sure I put that this place will be clean. This place, all appliances will be working. Let me do that next time. Um, you want to explore new techniques like me and Ashley do with social media, stuff like that. Be open to different things. Um, I feel like a lot of times realtors, we put ourselves in a box and you want to be able to just stay open-minded and try things. You never know what's going to work until you try it. And even if you try it, it might not work the first time. Sometimes you just need to stick with it. So make sure you guys are open to different things and eventually something's going to stick if you stay persistent and you're willing to put the work in. Also, you want to set personal goals. You want to have something that you're chasing after. You want to have you want to know what the light at the end of the tunnel looks like in your mind. So you want to be able to do that as well. And you want to iterate and adapt. Um, it kind of goes similar to learning new techniques. You want to keep an open mind. One thing we know about real estate is that it's a forever changing industry. Things don't stay the same for long. So you need to be willing to adapt, keep an open mind, and put your head down, get to work. So that's what I have with my part of the presentation. Again, me and Ashley, we appreciate everybody coming out, taking the time to be a part of this, and we're ready for Q&As. If you guys have any questions, or did Tony or Ashley, you guys have anything else
Yeah,
to mention?
I'm gonna fire a few questions fast and furious. Some of these may be that they have, and then we'll give it to the agents to see what they have. But first and foremost, this exceeded any expectations that I had. I mean, you obviously both put a lot of time and effort into doing this, and it shows. I am so incredibly proud of you. You know, I'm old enough to be your parents for sure, but I feel like, oh, look at them. They're just doing such an amazing job. So, but I here's some questions, okay? And I want to just fast and furious. So, Ashley, how long have you been in real estate?
I've been a realtor licensed for 5 years,
5 years. Okay. Do you work the business full or part time?
full time.
Full time. Okay. How many rentals
Yes.
would you say you have done in the time that you've been licensed and applying yourself?
Ooh, okay. Well, to be honest with you, in the beginning, I was all over the place. I had no system. I had no anything like that. So, like Daniel said, you have to make your mistakes, and sometimes it takes a little bit to get it going. But since I got it going, and since I got my technique intact, I would say I close at least two a month is what my goal usually is. At the least, about two a month.
And what's about
However, that
the average that you're making on these?
well, to be honest, my price point usually falls between about like 2000 and 2700. So with the structure that we're under where it's you guys take 20%, right? So I can
LPT,
average
right?
at least maybe, yeah, LPT. Yeah. So 1200, 1300, because again, it's 50% is yours. And then from the 50%, LPT takes 20% and you take the rest. So,
okay. And for anybody that's new and not sure how this works is, you know, the way it typically works is whatever the rent amount is, it 1 month rent is divided between the listing office and the renting office. That's where those numbers come in. And then, of course, you have your split with LPT. Gabi and I, as team leaders, when we made the move over to LPT, we just went ahead and said, okay, now we're not going to get a percentage of the split, but we do get the 150 fee, and that's critical. You have to collect that 150 fee. If not, that'll come out of your pocket. And like Ashley said, she is having absolutely no issues in getting this money. Ashley, what would you say? What would you change if you can go back in time? What's the biggest thing that you would have done differently from the time you started your career?
the biggest thing I would have done was, well, the change I would have done was to create a system. I just remember in the beginning just being all over the place. I when I got a client, I did not have a list of things that I would do to qualify them. It was just all over the place. But anyway, what did help again was getting your consultation on point so that as soon as you do get a prospect, you already know the questions to ask. Getting your system in place for uh, sending out offers and preparing the client for showings. Like I mentioned, getting those financial documents beforehand instead of afterward. Um, Definitely things like that. And also with marketing, like you always said, you can't be a secret agent in this business. You just can't. There's too many realtors out here for you to not do anything to make yourself stand out. So those three things.
Outstanding. Now, last question for you right now. I'll switch over to Daniel. Is what CRM are you using?
I use Lofty.
Okay, so that's the one that we have through LPT, of course.
Yes,
All
provided by
right.
LPT.
So was it difficult for you to learn how to use it, or you figured it out pretty quickly?
Not at all. It was pretty user friendly, and also we have so many videos on how to use Lofty. We have it in Connect and also on YouTube. You guys, we have to learn how to use our resources. So it's very easy to navigate, and there's so many tools out there for us to help if you need any assistance with that.
Fantastic. Now I'm going to go to Daniel now, ask him a few questions. Then I'm going to ask a couple that I would like for each of you to go ahead and answer. So, Daniel, how long have you been in the business, and then are you full or part-time?
Time I've been in the business since 2021, so I'm on 4 years.
Okay. So, and I'm sorry, you cut off, or maybe I'm losing my hearing. Was it full or part-time?
Oh, I said full time. Yeah.
Full time. Okay.
Yep.
And if you don't mind sharing, how many rentals per month do you average?
Per month to four, around there.
Okay.
Around there.
That
So
works. Okay.
yeah, I know I'm in the 20s this year. So in
Okay.
total, and
Okay.
I'm
Ashley's going, I
somewhere
gotta
in
hang
there.
out with Daniel some more and find out what
Yeah,
he's doing.
somewhere around there. The number has gone up throughout the years, but I'll say this year, yeah, around there.
Fantastic. Okay. Now, the other thing I was going to ask you, and do you use a CRM, Daniel?
Yeah, same as Ashley. I use Lofty.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. What are, and I'll ask both of you this, do either of you have a vetting or screening form that you have them fill out, or you're basically on the phone and you're asking them questions and then you're inputting that into your form?
You want to go first, Ashley?
Sure. Personally, I don't have anything that well, actually, I do. I do have a form that I can send out. Sometimes I use it and sometimes I don't. I like to gauge the client. Again, after speaking to them, you'll get more of an idea of which way to go.
Okay. Did I freeze or did Ashley freeze?
you hear me good?
We can hear you.
Yeah,
Ashley, we can hear you.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Everything froze
Thank
in
you.
time.
So yes, I do have a form for them to fill out, but sometimes it's just easier for me to do it over the phone or in the office. It just really depends.
Gotcha, gotcha. Danny, I forgot to ask you, what would you have done differently if you can go back in time?
Yeah, kind of similar to Ashley, just structure. It's very much I was just doing whatever. Like I was just kind of playing with my food, doing whatever. So I wish I'd had more structure of how I approach clients. A lot of times I'll get on the phone and all right, I don't know what to say. I'm saying the first thing that comes to my mind. Now I have a full structure of how I ask questions, how I vet my clients, all that type of stuff. So it's really just structure. It's just you and feeling confident as well. But that's something that builds over time. Is I have a different type of confidence now because I know so much more. So I wish I had the swagger that I have now, but that is something that takes time. So I'm not mad that I didn't have it, but
So
definitely would
Daniel's
have
got
helped back then.
swagger. Okay, so so you folks have to sign up for swagger classes. That's what you got to do here. So so what changed for both of you? What caused you at what point to say this ain't working? I'm not doing it right. I gotta change. What was? Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, it was really just this isn't working. Once you acknowledge that something isn't working, because sometimes you can lie to yourself, I think it's important to acknowledge when something's not working and when to divert and change your route and when to stick with it. I think that's important, knowing when to do which. Because sometimes if you're quitting on something that will work, you got to keep going. But sometimes you need to acknowledge when, hey, this isn't working. We need to change that. So obviously it weren't getting much traction. Things weren't working. And I just got to a point where I'm like, okay, well, let me start trying different things. As far as like when it comes to gaining traction and gaining clients, that's how I was. I'm going to try different things. Let me see what works. Let me see what doesn't. And when it comes to me personally and how I just operate as a realtor, it was just getting more organized, being more on top of things and just having more of a structure of how I do things. Because how I approach clients, there's a method to the madness now. Before there wasn't a method to it. It was just doing whatever and hopefully this works. But then
Gotcha.
I think, like I said, I think the more knowledge you gain, the more experience you gain, it's easier to build that structure
Yeah,
because you know what a
absolutely.
structure is supposed to look like.
What about you, Ashley? Do you remember that turning point moment?
Yes, I was just so burnt out. The rentals, as Daniel mentioned, it's very, very fast paced, and a lot of people need rentals, and you're going to come across a lot of people that need assistance, and just not having a process, not knowing the right questions to ask. I remember being in situations again where I was showing all these properties and nothing was being accepted, nothing was closing. I was running into certain issues, and I was like, well, duh, if I would have just done this a little bit earlier, then this would not have happened right now. And also, something that assisted with that turning point was when I really kind of started looking at it as a job, when I started realizing how much hours I was putting into it versus the money that you're getting back. So it just all of that allowed me to be able to just fine tune it so that I can create, just make it work more efficiently. There you go,
Gotcha.
working more
Yeah, and I
efficiently.
think also I want to mention is like similar to what Ashley said, when you first start out and you're kind of just doing whatever, when I was showing properties early on, like she said earlier, I wasn't vetting them before showing the properties. I was doing it after. Oh, they like the place? All right, send me proof of income. Let's run a credit background check, stuff like that. And when you go around and you spend a week or two showing properties, showing properties, showing properties, and then you grab, their documents and all their income and all that type of stuff, and you run a credit report and their credit's 520 and they told you the credit was 650, and now you're like, all right, I just wasted 2 weeks for nothing.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting here tired and you also don't have a contract. You have nothing under contract. And you have a client that you really can't really work with. Because sometimes you end up with clients that you can't really work with because they're not trustworthy or it's just too much of a messy situation on their end. Because what I always say, everybody needs to do their part. Um, Whether you're the tenant's agent, listing agent, a title company, landlord, whoever, and a tenant, everybody needs to do their part. But I think it's also important to make sure you're working with people that you feel confident are going to do their part. Because I know at this point that I'm going to do my part.
Gotcha.
So, and it's making sure you vet and you just have more of a structure because it gets so sloppy to the point you just all you're doing is just wasting time and you're tired. There's nothing worse than that.
So let me ask you this: Are you also working with rental communities? I know that a lot of the conversation has been about landlord plus the association, but do what factor do these play? These rental communities?
Rental communities, it's something that I've started to get into. Um, I wasn't at first I wasn't too sure how that works. I know some of them don't work with realtors. So just going directly through a rentals community. I ended up learning and it kind of just stumbled upon some and they'll talk to me and say, hey, I actually learned that doing a virtual tour of a property. I did it on accident. I was there showing a property and he told me, hey, you can do a video. You can just call me, let me know, and we can do that. We offer commission of this amount and you guys can go do that. I was like, oh, okay, so this isn't as tough as I thought it was. Some places do work with them. So yeah, it's something that I'm starting to get into, and I think the videos and the marketing for those type of places would be more attractive because a lot of these rental communities, it's a lot of new ones, so they're a lot more up to date and just visually pleasing for people to where you're more likely to get a message. You get more likely somebody to contact you. Hey, I want to see this place. Can I get more information on this place and stuff like that?
Okay. In the interest of time, I do want to see if anybody from the team has a question that hasn't been asked already. Let's keep it to a question only, not a story leading into a question at some point. So, any questions out there?
I have one.
Go ahead, Camelia.
Um, Actually, Danielle, I know you mentioned premium background. That's the one I used to for the screening, but I noticed a lot of agents are requesting rent spree. So if in the initial phase you're using premium, but then the agent with their client, the landlord, is requesting strictly rent spree and they've already paid, I think you said $47. How are you combating that since you've already done that with the prospective tenant?
Great question.
You want me to answer?
Answer it. It's cool. Yeah. So
Um,
oh, what I typically do is if it's noted in the remarks, because a lot of times, like you said, they'll have it in their rent spree only. What I'll do, I'll just ask them, hey, listen, I've already screened my client. Can we just use that? A lot of times they say yeah. So this is stuff, a lot of the stuff in the remarks, I still ask them about because a lot of that stuff isn't concrete. So you can always just ask and see. Now there are some situations, like I mentioned on my report, sometimes they do their own screening. Sometimes they say, hey, we only accept screening from this website or this system or whatever. Sometimes when you're in those type of situations, if they're firm on it, they're firm on it. So from my situation, it's something that you need to talk to with your client. Listen, I know we ran a screening, and this is something that I actually mentioned up front is that when we run our screening, we need this because I need to know exactly what your situation is so I can steer you in the right direction. But depending, we might come across a property that you like and they want to run their own screening or they in a situation like that, and it's you're gonna have to find out if that's something that they're okay with or not. And ask the listing agent if that's something that they have to pay for or not. Because sometimes I've had situations to where the listing agent says, no, we'll screen them and they don't have to pay. And you're in a situation like that. It's like, all right, well, cool. No problem.
Okay.
So I don't know if Ashley wants to add more to that. She can.
no, everything is what I would have answered with. A lot of times when I see that the listing says they're only accepting rent spree, honestly, I just send my PCB report and I never have any issue with that. The only time when I would bring it up, like Daniel said, is if it's a situation where the remark specifically says that the landlord or whoever is running their own independent screening. then that would be something when, I would reach out and ask. But if they ask for rent spree, I don't really mind that. I just send my report.
Okay.
Thank you guys. And you guys did a phenomenal, extreme, like out of this world. Like, wow. I'm so proud of you both.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Camelia.
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you.
Team, any other questions out there?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mhm.
It's for Daniel. Daniel, your contact information. Just get
Yes.
that from Xtreme, or I can get it from you.
Yeah, I could send it over to you. So I'll send it to you on WhatsApp. I'll send you my email, my phone number, everything. We can go through that.
And also, usually, what's the average parking spaces when somebody gets an apartment? Do they just get one, two?
So that depends. So now we're talking about the amount of bedrooms now. So if it's a one bedroom, you're gonna get one parking space 9 times out of 10. Sometimes certain associations might have available spaces that you can purchase. You can pay, let's say, $50 for an extra spot. Most of the time, they're gonna allow you to park another car and guest. But if let's say you're dealing with something with 2 bedroom condo, something like that. Sometimes they only give you one space and you park in guests. Sometimes they'll give you two. That's one thing that you call the association. That's why it's important to call them. Don't rely on a listing agent or anything like that. Give the association a call and just verify all that stuff because they're all different. But from my experience, it depends on the bedroom.
Okay, now is there a standard that you usually work with as far as commission
Yeah,
that you will
commission. Well,
accept?
commission. It's nothing set. It's whatever you negotiate, but typically it's gonna be half month. That's typically what they ask for. That's what they're giving out.
Okay.
I've seen some situations where they'll give out a quarter month, but it's rare. I actually had a situation a month ago to where they gave me the whole month of commission. But that's something, it's not common. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be half month, but just ask because you're also gonna need to get a commission agreement and everything like that. So you're gonna have to get that filled out anyway. So just ask up front just to make sure because you don't want any surprises if you go into contract and they're telling you we're only giving you a quarter month or something like that. So
Are you
you
getting
want
this
to make sure.
information from the listing agent or are you getting
Yeah.
direct?
Yeah, the
Okay.
listing agent, yeah, exactly. Because it's either the listing side is paying you or the landlord is paying you. So they'll have that information directly. Just give them a call and ask and verify that stuff. But most of the time it's half month.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Absolutely, no problem.
All right,
May I
team.
add something to that just really
Absolutely.
fast? So
Yeah.
sorry, really, really fast. Um, just piggybacking off of that, sometimes it can also be a set fee. Earlier this year, this only happened one time in all of my years, but the rental was $2,600, so I assume that it will be half a month. But the landlord was decided to only pay a $1,000 flat fee. I mean, I took it, it's fine. And what you can do in an instance like that is you take the 1,000 or whatever the landlord is giving you, and you can either be okay with that, or you can also ask your client if they will be willing to pay the difference. And that's what happened in my situation. I got 1,000 from the landlord and the remaining 300 from my client.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Ash.
All right,
Of course, my
team.
pleasure.
Couple things. I want to make sure that we get as much information as we can. The actual contract to lease and the process to filling all that out. There's a plethora of classes on how to do that. Plus, we also have those trainings available on Paperless Pipeline. Probably Connect has that as well with LPT. Don't enter this arena not knowing how to fill out a contract to lease. What they did such a wonderful job of doing is how you lead generate, how you vet, how you find the properties. That's gold. But you're going to get to the point where, all right, I want that one. Please, that's not the time to say, who's going to help me fill this out? You have to know what you're doing. Secondly, Gabi has everything structured and has been sent out, God knows how many times via email, on how you collect the monies on rentals. And we don't have time to get into that here, but man, we have this hassle all the time. We do not escrow. LPT does not escrow. Xtreme by LPT does not escrow. So there are other options available like New World and such like that. But I think all you got to do is refer to the information that's already been shared. One of the issues that we're having, we'll send out emails to 130 people, 60 open up the emails. Well, obviously, a lot of folks are not aware of what's going on. So if you don't have or you can't find that information, ask and it'll be sent to you. And then get whatever training you can on actually filling out the contract to lease. With what they've shared here today and that basic information, you're ready to go. And what I said earlier, Nancy just backed it up. They make $50 per rental in Highlands County. $50. And it's a stepping stone. Like Ashley's already made the successful transition, excuse me, to sales. Daniel, you probably have as well. So think about this. It's not something like I'm going to be a rental agent for the rest of my life. You can if you want. It's a wonderful niche. But like Ashley said at the very beginning, these renters, if you stay in contact with them, you just don't drop them. The rental's for 1 year. And last but not least, please, just because someone is approaching you because they want to rent, maybe it only happens 1 out of 10 times, 1 out of 20, but there's some folks out there that could buy if someone just said, by the way, wait a minute, you're thinking about making a $2,500 a month or $3,000 a month payment. You know what? You get a mortgage for that. And maybe they qualify now, or maybe in a year's time, they will, but you're building your business for the future. Okay. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Gabi stayed quiet on this. I don't know if Gabi wants to add anything or not before we go ahead and say our goodbyes.
Can
Oh,
I add one more thing?
we're good. All right, folks, listen. So here's what we did. This is being recorded. I never assume everything works out like it's supposed to because it's called technology. Assuming that the recording worked, we will email the recording to those that registered and only those that registered. So we appreciate you understanding that training is vital and that we need your participation so that we can help you with your production. All right, Daniel, Ashley, God bless you both. You guys are amazing. You're the future of Xtreme. So thank you so much for everything that you've done. And I'm sure that all of these folks here have benefited greatly or can benefit greatly from it if they implement what you taught them.
Absolutely. Again, thank you everybody coming out. We hope that this information is valuable for you guys and it's able to turn into close transactions, more money, more success.
All right, now before we stop, I want everyone to unmute themselves and I want you to yell, thank you, you're awesome, you're extreme, you're whatever. Come on.
Thank you. You're
Thank
awesome. You're
you.
extreme.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate y'all.
Information.
Thank you guys. That was awesome.
Thank you, thank you, thank
Thank
you.
you.
That was
Daniel and
amazing.
Ashley, it was a
Thank you,
great
thank
gift.
you. You can't see
Great
me
gift.
though.
You
I
rock.
love it. I love it. I love it. God bless all you guys. Stay safe and always, always, always be extreme. We'll talk to you later.
Extreme. Bye,
Night.
guys.
Good night,
Good night.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.